In the November 12th anti-union meeting, Mike, who opened the meeting identifying himself as an employee relations official, and a worker who identified as part of the ALU, got into a tense exchange after Mike and Dan T, these were the two quote unquote employee relations associates, hammered the point that ALU is an unauthorized third party, i.e., a union, getting in between the supposedly strong direct relationship between Amazon and its workers. A status coup is reported on the ground from Amazon's Staten Island warehouse in recent months. Workers revealed a horrid picture vastly different from a strong, direct relationship between Amazon and employees, one that included sweltering heat inside the warehouse, leading to workers being carted off on stretchers, workers operating under extreme productivity quotas, and constant threats of termination, lack of social distancing and other safety precaution amidst the COVID-19 pandemic, female workers being sexually harassed by male managers, full-time homeless workers sleeping in their cars outside the warehouse. Again, full-time Amazon workers, homeless, sleeping in their cars outside the warehouse, and a consistent siren of ambulances coming to and from the warehouse, whisking workers away. I know a story about one worker that I'm not going to get into because that worker has chosen not to go public yet, and I have to respect it. But this story about this worker is one of the worst employer malfeasance stories you will ever find or ever hear about. And I'm hoping that one day this worker will go public about what happened, because I know what happened. But as a journalist, I need to respect that the conversations, that the details about what happened to this worker was off the record. Amazon has also littered its massive Staten Island warehouse with anti-union signs, while HR officials improperly confiscated pro-union literature from break rooms. So let's play this part, Colin, from the meeting that we have audio of. And this is from, I don't know who it is. They didn't identify themselves, but this is a worker who identifies as a member of the Amazon labor union.
Speaking about that,
Yeah.
I'm part of the ALU,
Okay.
and we are not a third party because under the National Relations Labor Board law, every employee has the right to organize under federal law. And that means that Amazon has the right to recognize that. And we are compromised of current Amazon workers that's doing this being in a union town. That is New York City. It is not right that Amazon is calling ALU a third party.
So that's this worker. I think it's a male worker. This worker was going at it throughout this half-hour meeting with the two HR officials. So there's other parts, and in response to that, one of the HR officials says, "I appreciate your input and perspective." So they were basically just trying him to shut the fuck up. Tan responded before again stressing that the ALU is a separate legal entity, not under the umbrella of Amazon. Mike, the other employee relations official, grew testy in response to the worker challenging Amazon's HR's anti-union messaging. I want to bring it back to your first statement about ALU not being a third party. They're 100%. The ALU as an identity is a third party. Members of the ALU could also be employed at Amazon, such as yourself, right? It is legally okay to be employed at one place and be a member of another identity. But the ALU as an organization is not part of Amazon, even though Amazon is in their title. The ALU as an identity and as what they filed as a union is not part of Amazon. So they are a third party. So this is a common union busting tactic, and they just keep on beating the drum about third party, and they're going to interfere with our wonderful direct relationship. And, we have such a great direct relationship, and if there is an issue, you don't need a union. You could just go to your manager. And these are all things that they were saying in this meeting. Again, the full half-hour audio, if you want to listen to the whole thing, is at the bottom of this Substack story, so you're free to listen to the whole thing. But They just kept beating the drum, the scary third party. They're going to interfere with our wonderful relationship. They're going to make you pay dues. They could fine you and all these things. So later on in the meeting, Tan, one of the HR people, stressed that ALU is not authorized to speak for Amazon, and as a union could charge workers dues, fees, and fines in exchange for representing the workers. Do we have this part, Colin?
I appreciate your input and your perspective. Like Amazon, we talk about a third party is ALU is an entity, legally organized entity. At the same time, Amazon also another one legally organized entity. By this definition, so ALU is not under Amazon umbrella.
And
Not sure
then-
about your specific individual situation. I want to bring it back to your first statement about ALU not being a third party. They're 100%. The ALU as an identity is a third party. It's Section 7 of the National Labor Relations Act. I'm very familiar with it.
So-
you do have the right to organize, and which you can do that.
We
Everybody
could
can.
have the name Amazon on it,
You can.
but
I can also open a container store and call it Amazon Containers. That doesn't mean I'm part of Amazon. So the ALU as a business, as an identity, is a third party. It is not part of Amazon as a company. That's the whole point of it.
Amazon as a company doesn't protect its workers.
Well, thank you for sharing your perspective.
So basically, this goes back and forth with this worker. The worker, I think, shares a story about Amazon not providing this worker and other workers with medical accommodations for whatever their worker needs are. But you could hear in that HR official who, this whole meeting is about how wonderful the relationship is, our direct, efficient, effective relationship. It seems like he's getting pretty testy with a worker daring to challenge this propaganda, because that's what it is. It's propaganda. You're never going to hear audio of this on CNN, on MSNBC, New York Times, Washington Post, owned by Jeff Bezos. Of course not. Frankly, Amazon is a sponsor of all those networks. I've seen this one commercial over and over and over again with this guy. I don't even know. He says, I started out at Amazon and I had nothing, and Amazon put me through nursing school. And then at the end, they show him on the beach and like a sunset and how wonderful things are. That's called good PR, because that ain't the case for most Amazon workers. And by the way, shame on Terry Crews, who did a propaganda commercial for Amazon, working in the warehouse and tossing boxes to others. It's absurd. It sounds like a lot of union busting, lies, propaganda, borderline illegal intimidation to try and stop a union from forming. I'll continue. By signing either an electronic or physical one, meaning a union card, you could be authorizing the ALU to speak for you, and you could be obligated to pay the union dues, he said. So it's always the messaging is, they could take ownership from you and they could take your voice and you'll have no voice in the workplace, like they have a voice now. And, you're going to have to pay dues, and, they could fine you and all this shit. It's interesting because they call these peak training meetings. And in the beginning, they go through a list of all the great benefits of working at Amazon, but very quickly they get into the Amazon labor union. So it's almost like the whole entire purpose for this meeting is not really to inform workers of their rights, but to inform them away from signing a card expressing support to hold a union vote. The worker, who has been getting into it with HR officials throughout the meeting, says Amazon is playing the trick of delaying the process of a union election like they do with every legal process with every single employee. The worker who had challenged the HR officials previously contended. So this part is kind of like the most contentious.
So the ALU as a business, as an identity, is a third party. It is not part of Amazon as a company.
Doesn't protect its workers.
Well, thank you for sharing your perspective and experience. We're going to get through the slides and open up for more comments. Again, appreciate your perspective, sir. We're going to get through this.
No problem. Thank you.
Lies, pure lies.
Yep.
So can you play the end again? Lies, pure lies. That was good.
Through through this.
It's definitely a field of research part, so like, no problem. Thank you.
Lies, pure lies.
Yep.
Ah, wonderful. I think I know who that is now, the worker. I think his name's Jason. But so yeah, I mean, that whole meeting, it was pretty much one worker kind of going back and forth. I know the audio that Vice had, they went back and forth. Several workers went back and forth with these HR officials. Let me read the rest of this story. Last week, ALU withdrew their union vote petition after the National Labor Relations Board told the group that it needed to secure more signatures from workers expressing support for holding a union election. Christian Smalls, a fired Amazon worker and whistleblower who is one of ALU's leaders, tweeted that the group had submitted over 2,000 pro-union signatures, but due to Amazon's extremely high employee turnover and the company firing a lot of the workers who had signed the union cards, ALU fell short of the threshold to hold a union vote that the National Labor Relations Board. So in English, according to Christian Smalls, some other workers I spoke to said this too, Amazon basically fired a good chunk of the workers that signed on to the union cards, which I'm not a labor expert. Sounds illegal to me to fire workers who signed on to the union. But if those workers no longer work there, they can't be counted in terms of whatever number you need to hit to hold a union vote.